Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a video on the settings of my gate Aster that I have in my gun, which is my primary gun that I use. Now, the settings that I have are my general settings. The only thing I have on here is I have an adaptive brake, and I have my LiPo protection. I don't have my battery sensor on because if I have my battery sensor on, it will cut off my battery when it gets below 3 volts, and so my gun won't work once it gets lower than 3 volts, because that's what the Aster needs to run. So I just have LiPo protection and adaptive brake. If you guys want to use any of these settings on your Aster to get a good performance like my gun, you can go right ahead. I don't care. Now let's go on to my trigger. Now, on my trigger, I have pre-cocking set. Now, I have a DSG, so if you have a DSG, these pre-cockings should work for your gun. I have all of them. It's set on manual because if you go too far, it will double shot, and if you go even further, it'll triple shot, so you just want to get that at that perfect spot. So, I have my semi burst and full auto set to 16 milliseconds so I can get super snappy shots. And since I have an HPA set trigger, I have the ability to set my trigger right where I want it, and so the sensitivity of my trigger is at 16. You can see over here on the right it is hovering right at 14, and sometimes it switches over to 15. So that means as soon as I pull the trigger, just a little bit after it, it's going to shoot. So that's what gives me that super nice trigger response. Now if we go to my selector, I have on my selector, I have safe, semi, and burst/auto, which that means on where my gun would normally be safe, that's safe. Semi is semi, but on my full auto, it's burst. So if I tap the trigger, it's going to do a 3-round burst, which you can change right here. And I just have mine set to a 3-round burst to make it easy. And if you hold in the trigger on full auto, it will do full auto. Now, the reason why I have it set like that is since I have a DSG and I have super fast RPS, I don't want to have only full auto, because 3-round burst, if I do 3-round burst a couple times, it's going to lay down a ton of BBs down where I'm shooting because it's super fast. Now, if you guys want to see the other modes on here, I do have an expert on my Aster, so I have everything that you get on here. So you can do, these are all, you have safe, semi, auto, burst, binary, semi-ramping, and burst/auto. Binary trigger is where you pull in the trigger and it'll shoot, and when you let go, it'll shoot. That will let you get some super fast shots off, but you have to run a super big battery, like either 11.1 6000 milliamp or 14.8 3000 or 6000 milliamp, because you have to have enough power, because I've killed my 11.1 3000 milliamp using a binary. Semi-ramping is, it equalizes the trigger squeeze between, that's how you can change it to be, like if you tap it, it's going to shoot semi, and if you hold it, it's going to be full auto. It's super weird. Down on the bottom, it gives you everything. If you guys have this and you don't know what it'll do, on the bottom right there, it'll show you what everything does. Now if we go to my magazine, I don't have anything set for my magazine. I can have it set to how many rounds I have, but since I have 2 different types of magazines that have 2 different capacities, it doesn't really matter, because what this will do is when you have it on, it lets your gun know how many BBs you have, and then when you shoot, say you have 115 rounds, which is just what it's set as default, once you shoot those 150 rounds, if you can see down here, it says reload time 3 seconds. It won't let you shoot for those 3 seconds because it thinks you're reloading, and it will give you a low ammo warning to whatever you have that set on. In my personal opinion, I don't like it because I want to be able to reload and shoot as fast as I can, and I don't want to be able to have to wait. And then if I come over here to my alerts, this is just where I can set it. So I have it set to warnings and info, so if something's wrong with my gun, it'll give me a vibration and a beep through my handle, and it will give me info like if my battery's dead or if I have the magazine set, that's what it'll go through. And if I go down here to telemetry, this is just all of your stuff about your gun and how it's going to run. So my average fire rate is 25 RPS. Now that's what I normally have when I do 3-round burst. And my maximum is 46 RPS. Now keep in mind I'm using 11.1 3000 milliamp battery, so depending on the milliamp of your battery it will change. My rate of fire achieved on semi-auto is 11 rounds per second. Now that only is if you have it set as semi-ramping, it will not catch that, because on semi-ramping you can get some super fast shots. I've got like 20 RPS because I was using my chrono on binary, and it told me how many I have. Down here over on the trigger response, it'll just tell you what your average trigger response is. So this means it's normally at 50. The fastest I have mine is at 7. So it's like, and the slowest is 204. So this just tells you when you're setting it, where you basically set your trigger at. So average, if I pull my trigger all the way back where I have it set, it's going to stop at 50. Over here on the BB counter, this thing is kind of confusing to me. I don't really know how it works, but it kind of just tells you how many BBs you shot through your gun. And like right now I'm on session 56, so I've shot my gun and unplugged it 56 times, and I've shot 16,000 BBs out. And so it kind of really doesn't make that much sense to me. If you go down here to, down to electrical, it will tell you the temperature of your Aster. Now, right now, it's at 15 degrees Celsius, which is kind of hot, but you can't really tell between the metal and the polymer of my gun. And then you can go through, like, minimum's -4 degrees Celsius. That's when it's unplugged. And the maximum is 79, which is super hot. And then if you go over here to voltage, this will tell you the voltage. So my last was 12.42. Now, keep in mind, I'm using an 11.1 LiPo, and 11.1 LiPos have actually 12.5 volts, or they actually have 12.2 volts. So that is how much I have. The maximum I've had is 12.53, and the minimum is 9.41. So what this means is the minimum was when my battery died or something happened with my battery and it wouldn't let it shoot. That is why it shows up as minimum. Then obviously the last time I plugged my battery in and shot a couple shots, that's what it had. And then if you come back down here to diagnostics, this will give you if something happens with your gun, it doesn't work. So one thing I like about Gate products is you can, like, it tells you everything. So like right here on the bottom it says Aster did not detect the sector gear. What that means is you could have a misfire, and when the gear spins it senses it, and if it spins super fast sometimes it won't detect it. Now up here you can see I have a UVP1 and UVP2. That's just the error codes. If you click the info button, it'll tell you the possible reason what happened and what to do if that happens. What happened with mine is we were playing, and I hadn't charged my LiPo for a while because I didn't think I was going to play Airsoft, so I just plugged it into my gun and went ahead and played. And so what that means is, if you can see, the UVP1 is protection against overcharged battery protection. That's what I have set, so that just basically it protects my gun and my battery. So if my battery discharges, like if these two, UVP1 and UVP2 rolled off each other basically, so voltage dropped below 1.9 volts, and the Aster has to have 3 volts to run. So that means what my battery did is it dropped to 1.9 volts, and then it discharged a huge amount of power because it was dead and it wanted to get that last boost of battery out, which means this is why the UVP1 happened, and it protects my Aster against that huge bolt of power that it shot out when it gave that last boost out, if that makes sense. So those are all the settings on my gun. I just wanted to give you guys a basic rundown of what I have my gun set. So if you guys want to have your gun set like mine, if you have an Aster, then you can go ahead and do this. One of the nice things I like is if I have to go, or I go to a field and play and they have a rate of fire limit, I have a Gate Blue Link, which means I can connect it to my phone and do it on the field and not have to have a computer. So right here I can set the rate of fire control. Now I don't have mine on now, so I get everything that I have on my gun. But if I go to a field, I will set it to manual PDW, or no, not manual PDW. My manual delay, hold on, which one is it? Adaptive. So you're going to set it to adaptive, and I can set it, say I have my 46 RPS, the field only allows 25 RPS, then I will turn it down. Now this actually can be kind of good and kind of bad for your gun, because it's straining your motor to slow your gun down, and because it doesn't want to go as fast as it can. So this is basically setting a brake on how fast it's setting a delay between your shots. Now I don't have this on because, like I said, I'm getting the best I can on my gun, but that's just something you can have. What I recommend is setting that to adaptive, and then coming over to general, and then going to brake, and then set this to a manual PDW, and find the best between your shots so it doesn't strain your battery that much. So that is all I have for you guys. Thanks for joining me. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Tell your friends about my channel if they like Airsoft and you guys like Airsoft too. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.